Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, my fine friends. Welcome to the 13th episode of Season 13 of the Tom Petty Project podcast. I'm your host, Kevin Brown, and this is the weekly podcast that digs into the entire Tom Petty catalogue, song by song, album by album, and includes conversations with musicians, fans, and people connected with Tom along the way. So, as I promised, I wanted to get a bonus episode out to you guys that wraps up the entire Tom Petty weekend, now that I've had a little more time to digest it. And as I was thinking about how to do this, I realized that despite telling him that I wanted to chat to him in Gainesville, and despite hanging out with him for most of the first 3 days, I completely forgot to talk to Pete Nestor. So, as we're pals, and as he was at the first 2 days, I figured a good way to do this would be to just have a conversation between the two of us, and that would be a nice way to organize my thoughts and sort of get Pete's thoughts as well. So, I also filled Pete in on what he missed during day 3 of the weekend because he had to leave on the Sunday morning. So you'll notice that this is quite a long episode. And I do have a couple of guest interviews included. Over the course of the weekend, I recorded conversations with Maggie Clifford, Shine, Jake Thistle, and Jeff Slate. Unfortunately, I had a technical issue that means I can't use the recordings with Shine and Jake, but fear not, I've already reached out to Shine to figure out a time to get her onto the show for a full episode because there's so much to talk about with that lady. And I'll definitely have Jake back on once his new album is ready, and we'll have a good catch-up about everything he's been doing, including his upcoming tour of Europe. But my chats with Maggie and Jeff are included in the episode, and as you may expect, my chat with Jeff is a little longer as we fell into a good conversation, just ended up sort of feeling like old pals. Also, I've reached out to Matt from Have Gun Will Travel, so we're going to be recording an episode at some point, as well as Robin Shakedown, who, as you'll find out in the episode, and I think I talked about, blew me away. And who else? Shine. Obviously, like I said, we're going to be chatting as well. So, and I'm going to line up a couple of other interviews with people who are at the weekend. So, all in all, I made some good contacts down there, and I'm really looking forward to chatting to some of those people about their music and about their experiences with Tom's music. So, sit back, relax, and enjoy a conversation that I had last night with my pal Pete Nestor.
Right. Not a single, I didn't hear a single curse word like directed at anyone else along the way, or even anybody that was like waiting in line for too long and they started to get agitated and say, come on, what's taking so long? Like none of that. Everyone was like, well, yeah, you go in front of me if you want to. I'm listening to great music and it's 83 degrees and the sun's shining and Tom's spirit's hanging in the air and I'm listening to somebody play Free Fallin' on stage. Why would I complain?
Well, let's start there, because I think that's a good place to just jump straight in and actually do some on-the-record talking. If you've not got anything to do tonight, I've got nothing to do tonight either, but that was one thing that I think I was half expecting it, but not to the degree that it came through, was that spirit of Tom Petty. You know what I mean? I mean, the guy's been gone a long time. Most of us never met him, so there's no sort of tangible reason really why that should be. And yet, it's almost that everyone there had that thing in mind of, well, I wouldn't want to disappoint Tom, so I'm going to behave myself. You know what I mean? Like that definitely felt real to me.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and to shine your shoes for a little bit here briefly, the last statement that you made when you were giving your introductory remarks had something to do with that, right? Like I can't remember what the question was, but it had something to do with what do you find spiritual about Tom's music, or something like that. And I think your response was something to the effect of be genuine, always be real, and be true to yourself. He came out in his music, and that's how you should live your life. I'm paraphrasing, but that was kind of the gist, I think, of what you said. And that kicked off the weekend for me. And I wasn't consciously thinking about it the whole time, but you're right. That's sort of how the whole weekend felt, was just everyone was genuine and everyone was nice. Everyone was real. Everyone knew that every interaction means something.
Yeah.
And you pass along those vibes and that spirit to whoever you're talking to. And that weekend, the whole weekend just felt that way every step of the way, everywhere I went.
Do you think because I was thinking about this on the plane home too, I wonder if there is a generational component to that because of the demography of the crowd. Like we said, there were at times where we were, in the sort of bottom 10% percentile of age. So there's a lot of people in their 50s, 60s, 70s who maybe got all that stupidity and ramminess out, and now they're just sort of, you're a bit more relaxed into who you are, and you really are just there to have a good time and to celebrate this guy's work and to see all these musicians. So I wonder if that plays well. And plus, you're just too tired to get up to any shenanigans when you're in your 60s and 70s, right? So
I think maybe that has something to do with it too. Yeah, it's funny. I just did see something online today, something about how as you get older, you become, your highs get lower and your lows get higher, and you find a happy space kind of in the middle, and you sort of live your life that way as you go. And I don't know. I mean, I've met plenty of cantankerous boomers in my day. So I don't know if I always am going to buy into that, but there
yeah,
there definitely was a mellowness to the crowd for sure, and people that were, and we talked a little bit about this before, like let's stay out of politics, let's not go
yeah,
down that road because that's no fun, and it didn't come up. It was never an issue. I saw one shirt that was political, and I was like, okay, this is what's going to happen here. But that was the one and only shirt that I saw
yeah.
all weekend that even touched on that sort of thing. And so, yeah, I don't know. It definitely, but you're right. The demographics, and that was one thing from last year, having been there last year, and last year was kind of a weird one because as everything was hurricaned out. And so a lot of the folks that wanted to travel from far away couldn't get their flights worked out, yourself included, and just the travel plans didn't work. And so I was thinking, well, last year maybe is going to be different because everybody's going to be local, and the people that are local that are going to go to the show were all the people that graduated with Tom in 1969 or whatever year it
Right.
was exactly. And so my thought was, well, it's going to be all those 60-year-old folks, 65-year-old folks, 70-year-old folks or older, who were there last year, but this year it'll be a lot more diverse, and you'll get a lot more 30-year-olds and 40-year-olds. And other than the folks that were on stage, you didn't see too many 20s and 30s. As you say, us in the lower 50s, we're definitely bringing down the mean age in every room that we walked into. But that's okay. And I really enjoyed everybody that I met. Regardless, it didn't really matter to me. It was, but as you say, maybe it meant that there wasn't so much mosh pit slam dancing in the in the front.
Ain't nobody's knees going to stand up to that kind of nonsense at our age. It's going to be
And
blade up for a week.
I didn't see any ambulances show up, so that was a
No.
good thing. Everybody seemed to make it through okay.
Yeah, and we should talk about too the venue itself. I mean, we walked in, we went down there for supper, and then we snuck in, not snuck in. I mean, it was open sort of venue, but and you sort of showed me the layout and showed me where everything was. And even when you just walk in there, it's got that, it's a big enough venue that you can pack in. I think what is it, 1,100, I think, capacity, but it's small enough too where it does feel contained, and it feels like when you get in there on the Friday and on the Saturday, and it starts to get, when people start to come in, it still feels like it's a manageable size crowd, even though it's a lot of people. It doesn't feel like this big mob of people. You know what I mean? It felt like little pockets of community within a bigger community, which was super cool. That's one thing I wasn't expecting.
Yeah, not to belabor the point, but that also helped if you wanted to get up front and watch the show. And there was a lot of folks that were like, you know what, it's 10 o'clock. I'm too tired. I'm going to sit down and watch from my lawn chair back here, 150 feet away. So that also made it easy to get up and get into the show from up close. But no, you're right that the size of the venue, there again, I think it was bigger this year. It had to have been bigger this year, but I can't imagine it was bigger by much more than 25-30%.
Right.
Than it was last year. So that was another thing. I was afraid that it was going to just be overwhelming and just, people overflowing and just turn into kind of a sweaty mess. But no, I thought the crowd size is perfect. The inside got crowded, but that was sort of a self-regulating thing. Like there was only so many people that could fit on the inside, and once the people didn't fit, there was no more people coming in. But that space on the inside is just the Heartwood soundstage itself, right? It's just so beautiful. It's just
Incredible.
so warm. Just the acoustics are amazing. I mean, obviously, whoever put that together knew what they were doing. What a great place to see music.
And I was talking to people about that, and I think maybe even you and I chatted about it. But when you walk into that room, if you know anything about audio, and you see the bass traps in the corners, you see the sort of the reflector panels on the side walls to give you a bit of an angle, so you're not getting all that slap back reverberation off the walls. and the sloped ceiling. All these little things that you notice. You think,
Hmm.
yeah, whoever designed this room really knew what they were doing. And so for those performers up on stage to be able to have that control over the sound and to know that you've got this optimal listening experience for the people out in the audience, that makes your sort of your comfort level in performance all the better. And then we'll talk about some of the performances on the indoor stage because there were some extraordinary performances on that Heartwood stage.
Yeah, and the outdoor stage was excellent too, and the sound there was really good the whole time too. And I didn't get a chance to stick around for Sunday. Maybe we'll get into the Sunday performances. Maybe we'll wrap around that later. But the shows that we saw Friday and Saturday were some pretty special music, I thought. I don't know, what was your favorite for the first couple of days? I mean, there was so many highlights, right?
Yeah, I mean, it was great. Again, very surreal, kicking things off. It was just mad. And,
Yes.
and as we talked about, my first time in a performative sense on stage with the lights and everything. So only being able to see like the first couple of rows, and thankfully you were in the first couple of rows, so I could see you. So I had an anchor point if I thought, those first 5 minutes of just finding my feet. That was a lot of fun. And then Sean Murphy from the Tom Petty Trail was fantastic. He's one of those guys. You said that, you were talking to him afterwards. His recall on places. People, you mention a place to him, and he'll give you chapter and verse on who was there, when they were there, how it's linked to, and where it is on his website and everything else. So super cool guy to hang out with, super knowledgeable. Jeff and Jake.
And
I mean, okay, sorry,
yeah.
yeah.
No, I was just going to say the recall of Sean, that things that weren't even, so he's the Tom Petty Trail for those that aren't aware, tompettytrail.com. It's amazing, and I actually got a chance to sort of bounce around a couple of spots on it when I was just killing some time on Saturday morning. But things that weren't even on his trail that he would recall, like stories that he'd heard that he didn't put
Yeah.
in the like, he was recalling things basically that were just castaway stories that he didn't even follow up on. But he's like, oh yeah, the guy that gave Mike Campbell guitar lessons, his cousin who owned the diner down the street there. And it's just like, how do you, yeah, Sean Village, his cousin, they gave him guitar lessons when he was 16 down the street next to the cafe. Like, how do you know these names? These aren't even, it's just, yeah, so amazing stuff. But anyway, yeah, Jeff and Jake, incredible. I'd never seen, so I saw Jake last year on the indoor stage and the outdoor stage. And he was kind of a one man just wrecking crew last year because
Right.
Jeff wasn't there. So he came out in his suit, and he sort of felt like he kind of had that show. I think I mentioned to you, sort of felt like Elvis up there, just being a showman and just sort of commanding the stage. But this year with him and Jeff bouncing off each other was pretty special. And Jeff is such a professional as well. Jake at the age of 22 is, of course, 20 years beyond his years in terms of
Yeah.
experience and ability to control a crowd and command a crowd. But Jeff was amazing. I was really excited to see him live, and not that I wasn't expecting him to be what I saw, but I just had never seen him live before. So
Yeah.
actually getting a chance to experience that, and getting a chance to experience both of them playing off of each other and trading vocal lines and guitar licks, and just a lot of fun. Just absolutely fantastic. I was disappointed. I was thinking I was going to hear Wildflowers front to back,
Right.
song by song by song. I think they played maybe 7 tracks off of
Yeah.
Wildflowers, which was still awesome. And then, of course, another who's who of greatest Tom Petty hits, including some of their own originals, which were great too. So definitely not a disappointing show by any stretch of the imagination. It was fantastic, but was thinking I was going to hear 15 tracks in a row off Wildflowers and didn't get it. But that's okay. I'll be there for the 35th anniversary.
We talk about that too, though, because we should say for people who weren't at the weekend and aren't aware, maybe that a lot of the artists would play their full set with a band on stage, or in some cases just a duo or solo. I think in some cases, but then for those Heartwood soundstage performances inside, usually that was one, maybe one or two, and it was stripped back, and it was either acoustic or just single guitar. I know Robin played with and Nancy Luca both played their electrics. But the difference there, and this is what both Jeff and Jake, and I would say also Shine is a really good example of this. Controlling, that you're talking about controlling the crowd or managing the crowd, right? As a performer, that's a different skill than being able to play and write and all those types of things. It's an entirely different beast.
Mhm.
And it's very different doing it on a full stage with a band behind you and you've got, 800, 900, 1,000 people compared to 150 people where you can basically see the whites of their eggs, right? Like those are two different things. And so watching Jake and his stagecraft be able to, like you said, when we go on, but we're not going to be able to do this for much longer about his age, really, because he is old enough now to be a seasoned veteran. But just to watch how effortless he is at managing that, and to do it, not doing it performatively so much as you just believe every word he's saying, and it's coming from himself. He's not putting any of that on, right? He's not showing oh, look at me, I'm the happy rock star kind of thing. That's just who he is, and it comes across. So seeing that side of it, I mean, I've been a huge fan of his music for a long time now, but seeing how good he is in that respect too, that was the thing that really sort of was like, wow, this kid really is, this guy really is, if there's any justice in the world, destined for big things, because he's got the songs, he's got that voice, he's a good musician, but he's a pro, but he's also got that, that sort of star quality on stage.
Yeah, I'm looking for I'm hoping that he's like a terrible artist or something. Like he can't draw a cartoon, because there's got to be something. There's got to be something about him that he isn't amazing at, and maybe that's it. Maybe he just can't draw. He can't draw a stick figure to save his life. Maybe that's what it is. But I did enjoy. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, no, that I remember I think it was the first time I jumped online with him, and he played something on piano. He played like he switched between piano and guitar in the songs he was doing. And he said at one point, I've never played that on piano before. I thought I'd try it out. I'm like, you see, what? That's not fair. That is ridiculous, man. And he nailed it, of course,
Yeah, yeah. Now, I was going to say one thing that I really enjoyed too about the soundstage inside was how reverent everybody was in there, and how like there wasn't a lot of chatter and people talking through the songs or whatever. There was just this, and again, it has a lot to do with the space and how well the space was put together, that everybody was able to focus entirely all of their energy on what was going on stage, and what was going on stage 99 times out of 100 was magic. The whole way through everything I saw. So, and then I don't know about you, but I learned about a couple of bands that I'd never seen before. Two that really caught my attention. And again, I wasn't there on Sunday, so I can't speak to what I might have seen Sunday, but Nolia Joy and the Ramblers were fantastic.
Yeah.
I had a chance to catch up with Simon, the drummer, afterwards, and like a quick 5-10 minute chat. Just the nicest guy. Classically trained, or not classically trained, but a trained jazz drummer. Had the classic, like, you got to do jazz because that's where it's at, and that's where the pure music is. And he's like, nah, you know what? I'm going to play this rock and roll stuff instead. So I think they're college, they're Rollins College in Orlando, which is a couple hours away.
Right.
That's where most of them, I think, are from. But I'm looking forward to seeing more of them. They played a great version of Honeybee. I think they did Crawling Back to You, and then was Jeanette, maybe, was the name of the song that she sang about her great aunt that got run over by a train, I believe, in the Depression era. Just a beautiful, beautiful kind of Americana song, Americana feel, but with a real sturdy rock and roll backbeat to him.
Yeah,
that was pretty special. And then for me, Fortune Child was just absolutely devastating. They were so so solid. And we talked a little bit about this, you and I, kind of that maybe a Black Crowes. I definitely had a Black Keys vibe to a lot of their music. They were a 3-piece, which is basically what the Black Keys are, 2-piece with a bass player that they throw in the studio or on tour, at least in their early days. So they have that kind of a setup. But the drummer was an incredible drummer and singer, which you don't get a whole lot of. I mean, yeah, you can say, oh, well, Don Henley used to do that, Phil Collins and all that stuff. But to be able to lay those grooves down like he was, and still have such a forceful singing voice, was really, really great. And I don't know if you caught it, but at the end, they were running over time. Were you paying attention to that at the end of their set?
They were getting the cue because they were playing. Was it Night Watchman?
Night Watchman
finished with them? They were getting told to wrap up, kind of thing. It's like, well, dude, the song's not done yet. We can't stop here, right?
Exactly. And there was a couple of times when you definitely saw like bands, like they were getting the stage manager, whatever they would be called, would be, giving them the cut it. And they would like, just like the song would just end and be like, well, we got to go. Time's up. And these guys are like, yeah, we see you. Yep. Keep making those motions, but it's not gonna stop. So the guy ended up coming down to the front and actually got in front so that he was like looking at them in the eye, and they're just like jamming away. They didn't care, and it added some really cool tension and excitement to it. Actually, I think it made him play a little harder and a little louder.
Yeah, and that version of Night Watchman was cooking. I mean, I've gone back and listened to their album, and it is fantastic. And again, one of those bands that they're tight, right? When you see a three piece like that, and they're all just locked in, like there was no fat anywhere on the bones of those songs, and everything was just sharp. And it was, there's a couple of people I was talking to who said, "Oh, I don't know if this is the right fit for Tom Petty weekend because." They're a hard rock outfit. They're definitely more into that than it's not Americana, it's not folk. You're not getting any country flavors in
Mhm.
what they're doing. But for me, it was such, and this is something I think Dan Speece is brilliant at, is bringing in acts to just give you just a minute, get a minute's pause. Because if it was all country
Mhm.
Americana, if it was all the same thing, it would get a bit old, especially if you're hearing the
Mhm.
same songs fairly frequently. Bring someone like that in, and bring someone. We'll talk about Robin Shakedown. You bring in those acts that are out just enough outside that, but close enough to the source as well. To me, that's how you do it. That's how you build a festival properly.
Yeah, yeah. So you've checked out their stuff. I checked out their first album. I haven't gone and listened to anything their newer stuff just yet, but I know they've got some new singles coming out, I think in December, or maybe that was No Joy and the Ramblers. I'm not sure, but either way, there's some cool new stuff that I'm definitely interested in checking out. And then you mentioned Robin Shakedown. I didn't see Robin Shakedown, but Robin Vincent.
Vincent. Yeah.
I did catch her on the soundstage, and that was really cool. I know that there was some folks that were outside that it didn't translate, I don't think, quite so well
Yeah.
outside because she was very punk.
Yeah.
And that for me felt like, okay, Tom would really appreciate this. He
Yeah,
would
definitely.
really he would really get into this. And to your point too, it was not like, oh, it's another Americana group and it's another group that kind of sounds like early Petty or Eagles or something like that. But it was like, yeah, all kind of all over the map without venturing so far away that people were uncomfortable with, electronica or something like that. It was
Yeah.
like, still keeping people happy and they know what they were going to get, but still just also shaking the tree just a little bit. And Robin Vincent on that soundstage was awesome. She
Yeah.
she was tearing it up. She had some great stuff. Really kept people enraptured.
Well, yeah, her album or EP, I guess we call it these days, but what's it called now? Floor Goddess.
Mm.
Really, really well. I've listened to it at least 5 times since I got home. And it's
Okay.
one of those that gets better every time you listen to it. And as a podcaster, you think, I gotta talk to this person because there's so many stories behind these songs that I need to ask these questions and some of the little hooks and some of the creative directions. And like you said, very, very punk aesthetic. But very specifically, I would say New York punk. I think Ramones, I don't think Clash. You know what I mean? Like there's a definite sort of or Blondie or even Television. It's got that aesthetic more than it's got three chords and screaming, right? So to me, yeah, she was super, super compelling. And
Hmm.
we should talk about, you said about, in that room, there's that reverence there and there's sort of a different atmosphere. One of the ones that I wasn't expecting that just blew me away was Maggie Clifford.
Yeah.
Um, that was, we talked about this afterwards. For me, okay, so on day one, she was one of the artists who played in the pop up, like in the VIP area. And she's got at times, a very gentle voice. And I don't think that that suited her as much as being in that room, right? Being in sort of that room because during her set, because she's so internal and she's so sort of deep into what she's doing and in deep into the music that like I said to you, like it's almost like the audience doesn't matter to her at that point, which I know isn't true, but the intensity in that room, like you could cut that atmosphere with a knife. You could hear a pin drop throughout. And when
Hmm.
she did that version of Free Falling and she stayed low, stayed low, stayed low, and then
Yeah.
went high in that second chorus that's just one of the highlights of the weekend for me.
Yeah, and absolutely agree with that for sure. She was making that conscious choice to stay low until the end, and I was wondering why she was doing it at the time. And I was studying every note because, like you say, it was you just 150% focused on what she was doing. I noticed that she was, and I'm free. She was just staying down,
Yeah.
and I was waiting, and that was the whole thing, right? You're waiting for that release,
Yeah.
and then she finally gave it to you at the end, and it was like, yes, there it is, the payoff, and it was worth the wait.
Yeah, and it's because I've obviously, all the artists that we're talking about and the ones that we liked, I've gone back and found, but she's not really got an extensive catalog out there. She's actually got some electronic stuff where she's done collaborations, and she does this interesting stuff where it's vocal and percussion. So she's not playing guitar. So I think she's sort of very experimental, and she's like a PhD or something or other. Like it, so
She
she's
is.
crazy intelligent, and very articulate. I actually spoke to her after her after her indoor set, and just as sort of engaging and compelling to speak to, she has to listen to. And I'm going to drop that into whether it'll be this episode or whether I'll throw that out as a second one. But yeah, I mean, again, just someone who I could just listen to all day.
Yeah. Yeah, and as you say, a real compelling human. It turns out that she and I have like a ton of things in common. And I just went up to her and just, you do what you do as a fanboy. You're like, hello, you
Yeah.
you connected with me because we're from the same state. And, just trying to get that hook or that in or whatever. And we ended up having a 10, 15-minute conversation about a lot of things that were like, wow, that's your story. That's similar to kind of things that I can relate to, and in a very niche sort of way. So I found her very incredible human being, and also probably that's why her catalog isn't quite as extensive as some of the other folks, right? Because she's she's not a professional musician. She's doing this because she's super talented and likes to perform, but has a lot of other things going on that is stealing away her time to make music, I think.
So I'm here backstage with Maggie Clifford, who's just come off stage. I hope I'm not bugging you. I know some artists like to come down a little bit. How was that out there?
It felt great. I mean, it was really fun to play a few of Tom Petty's songs for a short little set. Yeah.
So you're a resident in Gainesville right now, but you said you're from Rochester, New York.
That's
originally?
where I grew up, yeah.
How did you get down to Gainesville then? What was the path there?
Well, after my first child was born, my parents had been wintering in Florida. And so we at first moved to St. Augustine, but then I started a graduate program at the University of Florida back in 2016. No, 2014. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And how long have you been playing then?
I started playing like professionally for money after I graduated undergrad. So that was like 2008. So, but I've been playing in cafes and stuff since I was 15.
Yeah. So I've been out there in the audience. There's this, like you were talking, you referenced Jake Thistle on stage who does deep cuts, but you did a bunch of the sort of the bigger hits. But the energy in that room from the sitting in the audience was a lot different because you could hear a pin drop in there because there's a real intensity to the way that you perform and you sing with your eyes closed. So it's almost like we don't want to intrude on this time that you have with the music. So that sort of stage presence, getting up on stage and singing in front of other people, what was that process like for you?
Well, yeah, it does feel intimate. And I mean, being local here to Gainesville, I have been playing on this stage a lot. And this is, when they built this place, actually, I thought to myself, oh, I could stay in Gainesville. I thought that we would just stay for my master's degree 2 years and then go. But, this being able to perform on this beautiful listening room stage, the Bob McPeak listening room, who was a friend of mine and a collaborator, who helped build this place, it feels very intimate to me. It feels like a home stage, but it's different every time. Like this audience is very different than like the people I normally know, at least a good handful of the people. I knew some of the people in the audience, but there's a lot of people from out of town here. So it's nice to be able to showcase the stage and some different interpretations of the songs.
It's a great room too, right? I mean, just sonically, the audio in there is beautiful. The acoustics are great. You've got everything set up properly for sound. So as a musician, being on stage, it's nice to have that sort of acoustic quality, right? So do you record your own music? Do you have CDs out?
I have a good amount of music floating around on streaming platforms, and I am recording a full-length album right now that I'll release in the spring of 2026.
And is that acoustic or do you go full band? Like
It's primarily acoustic. For now, I've just added one percussionist on a few songs because some of my music, if you do find it on the internet, you'll see that some of my most popular songs are just my vocals and a percussion instrument. So
Okay.
that can kind of be used. They're often used for like yoga and like ecstatic dance.
Okay.
So we have a great singer in
Great,
the
we're like a
bathroom right
private
now.
concert back in the
Yes,
back.
it's wonderful. So yeah, I have two different kinds of songs. I have like more folk inspired songs, the more classically folk with the guitar and my vocals, and the other ones I recorded vocals only and I'm adding some percussion to them.
Okay, that's interesting. It's almost like the Suzanne Vega route, where we take just the vocal and do the a cappella thing.
Mm-hmm. And then figure out what do we want to fill in here and how. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, hey, look, best of luck. I'm 100% gonna be checking you out because you're. Oh, I gotta say before we finish, do that. When you started free falling and you were down low, I mean that really sort of breathy, low down delivery. But then when you step up in the second chorus and go high, it just you could feel the room just go.
And
like it's so good when that happens, you know.
And I think they could feel, because in my mind I was thinking, am I going to do it? Because I had a catch in my throat earlier in the song. And so I had wondered if I was going to, or just stay in the lower, like depressed in a good kind of way sound, you know? But like, I was like, well, we're gonna free fall. Let's see.
We're gonna go for it.
Let's see what free falling feels like right now.
Those are decisions that musicians make all the time on stage that the audience don't see, right?
Yes.
You don't know, well, what happened? Why they did it that way tonight? Well, that's because the guy broke a string and there's
I
only
know.
5 strings left or whatever.
But it's funny how there's like all these subtle calculations going on at the time. Like I'm singing the lyrics, but then I'm thinking, sometimes anticipating, especially songs I've known, quote unquote, free fallen for a long time, but that's my first time ever performing it. So
Are you kidding?
yeah, no, so American Girl, Free Fallin', and those are You Got Lucky. I had not performed them before this weekend. So
Wow.
so it's been a journey to arrive at singing them today.
I tell you, you would never believe that in a million years. You would never guess that in a million years, though.
Well, thank you.
Yeah. Hey, dude, thanks so much for your time. I'm going to be checking out your music for sure. I'll put links in when this goes out. There'll be links in the episode note, folks. Go check out Maggie Clifford. You won't be disappointed.
Thank you so much.
Okay. Yep. Another amazing lady who I wasn't aware of. I mean, I think peripherally I'd heard the name and I knew that she took guitar lessons from Mike Campbell back in the day. But Nancy Luca hit the stage like a freaking hurricane at 67 years old. She had more energy than any of the 20-year-old kids. She was jumping up, doing the Van Halen leg splits, doing the whole 9 yards, right? It's like, wow.
She was dressed up like Janis Joplin. She had the pants and with the flare bottoms, and she was having a great time and telling stories about getting busted for weed at 15 years old or whatever, and spending the night in jail. Which you know, we were joking a little bit about that. Like, oh, it's funny now, but I bet it wasn't funny for 15-year-old Nancy Luca.
But I mean, the highlight of her set though for me was Whole Lotta Rosie, because I mean that's just, you know, when they took the stage. That is one of the last songs. Like if you drew up a short list of 250 songs that you might hear, Whole Lotta Rosie ain't going to be on there. And it was amazing.
Tons of energy. She played Inside too, right? Did you see her set Inside? Yeah,
I didn't. I caught him. I think I was either getting food or I was doing something. I was not going to be getting food.
I probably stole you away from the venue for dinner at some point. Yeah.
So Fortune Child were followed outside by Shine and the Shakers.
Oh, yeah.
And of course, we got to see Shine again at the pop-up on the first day. And that was my first experience. And of course, I've heard all about Shine. You were telling me about it. Dan Speece is a huge fan, and he's always sort of fanboys about how good she is. When you see that lady play that guitar, like, oh yeah, no, she's really knows her way around that instrument. But again, very sort of when she's doing that acoustic thing, quite a... not exactly reserved, but a very sort of controlled, calm demeanor. Get her up on stage in front of 1,000 people, and she's just this rock god, right? I mean, it was amazing seeing her. She's a very different stage presence, almost like not confrontational is not quite the right word. And I think Robin actually is a bit more confrontational in her presentation, like live, and we'll talk about day 3. But Shine's got that thing where she's in charge, man. Like she's in charge of the crew, the band, the audience. Like she's got, you know what I mean? And sometimes in a in a rock crowd, when you get someone like that, it's like, oh, good, we're in safe hands.
Yeah, she again commands the stage. Her presence is incredible, and you're I get where you're going with the confrontational part because she's so confident up there that it
Yeah.
almost it could veer on this like cockiness, but it never does because she always sort of brings it back into a way where she's like, yeah, you know that I'm just joking around up here,
Yeah.
right? So there's always that connection that she has that's really special too, and she had a great band with her. I know that the guy that was playing guitar, they were trading off licks, and he was doing a fantastic job too. So the whole outfit was great. But I would have loved to have seen that pop up, or not pop up, but the indoor show, because I did see the Hey
Oh,
Joe version online, which was pretty special. And you're right, she is reserved. It's she does the classic thing of what's special about it is the note she leaves out.
yeah.
And you really feel that she could blister that fretboard up in a heartbeat if she wanted to, but she's very good and knows the notes to play and knows even more importantly the notes not to play.
Yeah. And okay, let's move straight on to that then, because she played the picnic and she got up and said, like, I still get nervous doing this. I do this all the time and I still get nervous. And again, I when I speak to her, because I want to get her on for a full episode, because there's so much to unpack with that later, right? But that doesn't come. This is what I think of what I meant about her presence on the big stage is that doesn't come across, and she doesn't have her glasses on either, right? She didn't have her glasses on the full stage, where when she's doing those more intimate performances, it's almost like she wants to
That's true.
hide a little bit, hide behind the music a little bit. Whereas on the electric set, she was out in front of it, and she was pulling it rather than pushing it. You know what I mean? Does that make any sense?
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's cool. I remember Ray Davies at some point saying, "Is it Ray Davies or Ray Davis?" I think
Davis.
This is
He's English.
Davis. Yes,
Davies, if he's Welsh,
yep.
Davis. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I just recognized just a couple years ago that I've been pronouncing that all of us in America have been pronouncing it wrong for 55 years. But he said something a bunch of years ago about how he gets nervous every time he performs, and he'd been performing at that point for 40 years, and he was like, "Yeah, the second that I stop being nervous is the second that it's time to pack it in."
Yeah.
Because there's something about the energy and the excitement of like what's going to happen tonight that keeps you coming back. So that's cool to hear that Shine, even though she obviously commands that stage, it's cool to hear that she actually still also does kind of feel the tingle in the nerves too. That's neat.
Yeah, and she did that. She covered "Oh Well" by Fleetwood Mac. I'm sure you know the song, one of my favorite guitar licks of all time. But she sort of, well, she changed it a little bit. It's like she changed it and made it her own in a really interesting way, while staying faithful to it and also making it kind of sound better on acoustic guitar. And then she finished the song with these mad classical arpeggios where she was just like in her own little world, just playing, and she was playing all these super cool licks that are definitely not blues. They're kind of definitely more into that jazz territory that you're talking about. But then she dedicated it to me, because I was talking to her about Peter Green when we were chatting in the green room, and so she said, "Oh, this one's for Kevin," and we were talking. So I was like, "Well, that's made my friggin' weekend." So,
my God. You kicked off the Tom Petty weekend by being the first performer. You gave out your first autograph, and now Shine's dedicating songs to you. This is what a week. What a week for Kevin Brown. That's awesome.
And don't worry, my co-host on Seaside Pod Review has given me no end of grief about now being an international podcast. I got the boots laid to me this week. And
international. That's true. International. Look at that. You're taking your show on the road and going international. You gotta get to South America next. Keep traveling south.
Next stop, Rio. I mean, Jesus. So yeah, well, just to finish off, I mean, you sort of raised the Hey Joe, right? And I think I was chatting to you offline about it, maybe, that I would say that Shine's performance indoors, and I'm not exaggerating for effect here, and I don't think it's recency bias, but I would say that her performance on that indoor stage on the Sunday was top 5, maybe top 3 live performances that I've ever seen. I'm not saying it's, I'm not putting it on a par with Petty the Film or the Stones when they came over to Altamont. I'm not saying that, but for me to be in that room, I don't know, 8 feet away from someone doing that with a guitar and their voice was just absolutely unbelievable. And like you said, I mean, the room sounds so good, and you can never really capture it on a cell phone. I mean, you get the gist of it, you don't really hear it the right way. It was just, I didn't say, okay, so I'll tell you how in it I was. I think that one and Maggie are the only two shows that I didn't get any photos of because I'm not taking my phone out now because that would just break it. I want to just listen, so
Yeah.
incredible.
I tried real hard this year to not be in my phone and be that guy.
Yeah.
And I still took plenty of pictures, especially when Jake and Jeff were playing, because I was right up front, and there was just so many great moments where they were connecting, and I couldn't help myself. I had to capture it. But other than that, I took very few pictures this year, and that was a conscious decision to try to be there in the moment. And like you say, sometimes you forget to take pictures, and that's even more special because there's a reason. Obviously, you're absolutely you can't take your eyes off it. That's cool.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Okay. Well, day 3. So I should say that, we met my friend Brad Gould, who we hung out with and we went for supper with, and I had shrimp and grits for the first time, which was amazing, and all sorts of other Southern food. I should say, man, the food, I didn't have anything less than an 8 out of 10. The food was fantastic the whole weekend, and I deliberately went out of my way to, and I'm not usually, I like trying new things, but most of the time when I go out here, I like to cook more than go out, but when I go out here, I'll tend to stay within certain bounds. Well, I had no freaking clue what grits was, and we were chatting about it, and you weren't exactly sure, as it turned out.
Yeah, I knew it was hominy, but I don't even know what hominy is. So I was like, hominy, that's a word that I associate with grits, but what the hell's hominy? So yeah,
so we Googled
it. And then, yep, grits is hominy. Okay, I still don't have any information to go by, but yeah.
So yeah, on the Sunday morning, Brad took me out to the La Chua Trail, and I saw alligators out in the wild, and lots and lots and lots of alligators. And Brad said, in Florida, you basically assume any body of water, there might be alligators in it. So just treat that with the respect that's owed. And we did some beautiful scenery. And one thing I'd sort of remarked to him, and I was telling a couple of people when I got home, was, when you travel, and I go back to Europe, the sort of the flora in Canada and in Europe isn't dissimilar. A lot of the same species of trees, of grasses. Like, you don't feel really like you've gone too far away from home. Down to Florida, like, the trees are all different. You got those, what do they call the old oaks? No,
live oaks.
Live oaks. Sorry, you got the live oaks, and then that Spanish moss. Never any of that up in Canada. I mean, I think it would just freeze and die immediately, right? So all the grass looks different, all the trees and the plants look different, and then the birds are different. And again, you got bloody alligator dinosaurs kicking around the place. So that was really interesting for me, just from a sort of almost like a temporal standpoint of, I really felt like I was somewhere different. And I found that super, super cool.
Mm-hmm. And the accents are different. People talk different, a little slower, a little drier, which was kind of fun. I remember moving down south, and I think, you kind of had that same experience. Like, you see it on in the movies, and you just assume, well, they do that in the movies. But if you're not, if you're not in it, you're like, well, it can't really sound like that, does it? And then, and this is dumb 20-year-old Pete saying this. This is 30 years ago, before I sort of started going down south and moved down there for good, down here for good. But it is an experience where you're like, this is pretty awesome. I don't know. It's just, there's something special about it, of being in it and being in that Southern culture, and just being a part of it.
Definitely, yeah. And again, I'm coming down to Florida, to the southern states, and the South with a capital S. I think, that's a specific thing that people imagine. But Gainesville's such a wonderful, loose kind of, it's got a great energy to it, but it's also, there's a looseness to the place, and it feels cool. I really enjoyed the place itself. Like, it's all kind of walkable too. You can really get around Gainesville if you're not afraid of walking a bit. Like, there's nowhere really from the downtown core that you can't get to within, like, say, half an hour. I mean, I think you walked out there too, right? I went out to Tom's house in Charlottetown, and then walked back down to Lillian's because I wanted to do that. I wanted to follow those footsteps because there's only so many ways you're going to do that walk. So that was super cool. But the town itself, because someone was asking me, like, what was the week since I've been back? What was the weekend like? And I said, like, literally everything was awesome. The food was great. The people were amazing. The music was outstanding. Every single part of it. And I think the town itself, for me, played into that, and my first experience of being in the South, being an English person and a Canadian, from the outside, you get sort of this sort of skewed view of what the South is. And I'm sure parts of the South are going to be that, but Gainesville definitely isn't. And so I came away from it with I think definitely sort of a bit of a transformative reminder that people are people, man. Like people just want to get on with their lives and for their kids to be successful and to be able to afford a beer at the end of the day. And you know what I mean? All those things carry. So with all the noise that goes on in the world, that still remains true. And it was a good reminder of that.
You said people are people, and those are the exact words that were forming in my head when you opened your mouth and spat them out. I couldn't agree more. And that was the another thing that, obviously the music was the high point, but the interactions that I had with people from all over the country, many of them from the South. I had, I sat down and had lunch next to Kathy, who's in from Kentucky, and we had a great conversation about her dad and about going to California for the first time and being in Los Angeles and putting her feet in the Pacific Ocean, and all these experiences that just remind you of that exact thing. People are people. And she gave me a nice little handmade heart with Tom Petty Weekend 2025 stitched into it and whatnot. And I'll keep that and really think fondly of the memories and of the people that I met when I was there, because that was really, I like people, but sometimes you just feel overloaded by it. But I never felt that way. Every conversation I had was sort of regenerative and recharging as opposed to draining. It wasn't ever work to sit next to somebody you didn't know. It was like a cool experience and getting to share each other's stories. It was really special.
It's funny too, because I know that most people probably assume that I'm an extrovert. I'm really not. Like I definitely need my own time. Like that's why I go out for an hour and a half, 2 hour walks, right? I need to just get out and just be in my head and be with myself and not talk to anyone, not to answer any questions or deal with any crap, So I definitely like that term. But I found the same thing, that being in a big crowd like that and people coming up to you all the time and or just going chatting to people, it never got frustrating. It never got too much. I was tired at the end of the days. Like I fell into bed and like I recorded my little recap things, but I fell into bed and I was out like a light until I woke up. But I never felt like it. I never felt like you said that. I never felt overloaded. I never felt like I was getting drained, which is again super cool. But okay, so let's get into day 3 a little bit.
Okay, I wasn't there for day 3, so you tell me.
Yes. Yeah. The picnic was great. A lot of people said it was the best attended that they'd done, and they brought a bunch of pizza out, so we all had some pizza. All kind of just stood around hanging out and talking. And then Keith showed up. Keith Evelyn showed up. So Keith had missed most of the weekend through some illness. So the cheer that went up when Keith came, man, was fantastic. Right? And I think great for him because he felt that love coming back. And he played a few songs. Like he strums and plays. And he did Dark of the Sun, which I think is one of my favorite songs from Into the Great Wide Open. And I chatted a little bit with him afterwards about that and said, that was super cool. And then I said, Shine played. And then I got a ride back with a couple of people who I met from Cliffwood Garden Music, who were actually sending me. They recorded I think they recorded most of the indoor sets actually, but they recorded my bit and Sean's bit.
Nice.
I'm going to get that from them so I can post it out to people. But got back, and then I was made sure that I got back because Robin was playing. Robin Shakedown with her full band, with a violinist. And like you said, punk, man, that energy, because she's tall. Like she's a tall lady. But she's got that same kind of thing where she's challenging the audience to like, you dare not pay attention to this. Like I'm here and I'm going to sing these songs. And I'm going to sing them loud into your face. And I want you to hear every single note of them. And there is something really compelling about that. And I've told you this before about, my sort of watershed moment with, oh, that's a rock star, was seeing Billy Idol. As soon as Billy Idol strutted out on stage with no shirt, black velvet pants and shoulder length blonde dreadlocks, I'm like, I get it now. I know what a rock star is. And Robin's got a bit of that. She's got that kind of same presence that you can't take your eyes off her when she's performing. And she did a brilliant version she did Casadega, which was great. She also they covered Cool Dry Place, which is
nice.
top 3 Wilburys song for me. I love that song. And so I kind of gone up to her after and said, thank you so much for doing that. And we got a chat and everything else. So I've reached out and hopefully I'll be getting her on the show. She was great. But then we moved inside for Jeff Slate. And this is where you were talking earlier about people not getting off when they're supposed to. Jeff was being a naughty little boy, which was very, very funny because he said, how long have I got? 15 minutes. He's like, oh man, I usually talk for 15 minutes. And he more or less did. So I can't remember which one he opened with. He did a song, then he talked a bunch. He was telling little bits of stories. And of course, he's always very engaging and very funny. And I think he played 2 songs and they sort of gave him they gave him the hook sort of thing. And he's like, well, can I just carry on playing? They're like, no, you're done. He said, look, like you can turn the feed off to outside. I don't care. Like I don't want to interrupt anyone. He said, but just like I'll just play for these guys. And then of course everyone else is like, oh yeah, we'll let him play. And so like, okay, well one more. So he played one more, and when he'd finished it, he went straight into I Won't Back Down, which I thought was just such a rock and roll move. I thought that was, I mean, okay, I mean maybe he disrupted things for the next person coming on stage, but they still would have had, he was only over by about 10 minutes. So they would still have had, because the outside sets are 45, they would still have had half an hour to get the next person set up. But it was just like, there's none more Jeff Slate than that. That's just a total Jeff Slate move, which I thought was so funny. And then I chatted to Jeff for a good 40 minutes afterwards. Like I said, that's where I think my conversations might have to be their own thing, because me and Jeff just nattered for ages.
You're going to have a hard time getting all this content out.
Mm-hmm.
You got a lot of content all stacked up here, ready to go.
It's a good problem to have, though, right?
It's going to be a couple months before you get into side 2 of The Last DJ, I think.
Yeah.
So backstage in person, finally, with
yes.
Jeff Slate. Dude,
Yeah.
that set, let's talk about that set last night first, because I've seen a lot of rock and roll.
Yeah.
And you played a lot of rock and roll. There was an energy in that set last night that was just absolutely infectious. Did you enjoy it up there?
Yes. I mean, that's the best part of the job. It's like, I know you and I have talked about this. It's like the people don't want to hear you complain about it, but there's a lot involved that doesn't have anything to do with the 2 hours you're on stage. So it's, and no complaining about that either. That's the life I chose, and it's also a pretty great life. However, that part of it, when it's like that, and when you get a crowd like that, it's Tom Petty weekend. They're there to see not just the big hits, which obviously everybody loves, but, the deep cuts and the fun stuff and the sort of off-kilter stuff. And you're right, though. There was we've done this now a few times. We've headlined a couple of times. It's always a bit of a surprise what people respond to.
Yeah.
But it was funny how, like, right from the very beginning, particularly after we got through, people were into the Wildflower set.
Yeah.
But by the time we hit Good to Be King and Wreck Me, I was like, okay, it's the rest of this is gold.
It's going to be easy.
Yeah. Because the rest of it was really hits. There were a couple of songs of mine and Jake's, but people were very responsive to that. But it's like once you're hitting that stride and you get to Stop Dragging and Refugee in America, it's like, you kind of can't go wrong. So, but yeah, I mean, it was obvious up there. It was very hot on stage.
Oh God, I can only imagine, because it was sweltering, not on stage. You've got those lights on you, the high beams. You've got to get
and the
LEDs
humidity
up.
and all of it, the amps, and it was, but it's all kind of part of the thing. It all goes away at the best moments.
It's so cool, though, because the other thing, there's those little moments in shows that we all love, that, like when Jake kicked his cable out, and he didn't have an acoustic guitar for about 3 minutes there or something, and then when Shine came on at the end, those are those moments in shows that as rock and roll fans, you're never going to see that again. It's that little lightning in the bottle moment there. And so again, like, you guys feed off that so well on stage. And I want to talk about your band, because you put together, that's a hell of a lineup. Your guitar player, Jake made the joke that if he had 3 wishes, all 3 would be for his tone.
Yeah.
Where did you find that guy? Tell me about him.
So Brad Burns is a local guy. I think it was maybe 2021, I think. I came down here and they put together a band for me. And I sent everybody the set and they learned the set, and I came down a little early and we rehearsed, and, really good people. And the bass player, Peter, and Brad were like, just knocked me out. And Brad in particular, those kind of lead guitar players who can both play the signature lines, but also make them their own, who they don't sound like, computer generated or a stomp box or whatever. It's his fingers doing that, that is the tone thing. And he looks cool, and he's a cool guy. He's a good hang. very, very, very funny dude. We're roughly the same age and everything. So it's, so I fell in love with him. And I've told him many times, if he lived closer to me or I lived closer to him. In fact, we're going out with the Wallflowers this week, but I asked him to do this with me today, and he just had another booking, but I would use him every time.
Yeah.
If I could.
Or if you find those people who you play off well, that's just the dream, right?
Yeah.
I was listening to that solo he played in Money Becomes King, and he was throwing little shades of Comfortably Numb in there. That second minor key solo, little phrases, just little things. That's just
lead
crazy.
Guitar players love to do that. My guitar player, Mark Vaj up in New York, does that with he throws in Yardbirds lines and stuff. And the fans who know it, those signature licks too, but I think that's what makes it fun and funny, a little bit clever for them and so forth. But also no disrespect, Adam Carlisle, who was in the house band, the first band I was here, they were like a Tom Petty sort of tribute band, just completely knocked me out, and also a great guy, but he plays Hammond organ and piano. There's very few of those guys who play Hammond organ, and he does that. And the drummer, Logan, was in, I think, that same house band.
Holy shit.
And he's just, he's just an animal. He's just a rock and roll animal. He just hits really hard, and, he's good at communicating in the moment on stage, because I'm very, as you noticed, I'm in charge, you're going to do what it was funny. Peter was telling somebody, because I sat in with the band on Friday night. So the bass player, Peter, was saying, just watch Jeff. He's going to go up there and he's going to there's going to be 15 seconds where he goes around the stage and tells everyone what to do. And then they're all going to look at him and follow everything he does. But if you see his arms go up in the air like this, oh boy. He's just stay out of the line of fire. And it's funny, I don't really think of it that way, but it's that, when you're up front and you're in charge like that, particularly because you have your back to kind of everybody, you've got to feel like you have some control of it and that they're following you. Yeah. Right. And we talked about that at rehearsal, that, it's Brad's thing was you're the guy. If you do it wrong every time, that's how we got to do it.
Yeah.
So,
but you do have, obviously this is the first time I'm seeing you perform live.
That's
and I said, we've chatted lots and I've seen videos of you playing. I've got your album on vinyl, but it's different being
nice plug.
20 foot. Yeah. 20 feet from someone.
Yeah,
right?
I saw you. Yeah.
Somewhere, everyone should be going. But it's different when you're that far away, just to see someone's charisma just come through. And like you said, that leadership comes both from sort of being, right, I need this from you, but also from you getting up and leading from the front, right? Because if you sucked, no one's going to follow you. Right? You don't follow a shitty leader into battle. You want someone up there who you can trust as well. So and I think that comes across as well, that you lead well. And I hope they take that as for the compliment.
I appreciate that. I think, I was always in a band. I always co-fronted or, it was collaborative. I never really wanted to be the front guy. I went through a small period doing it in the early 90s, and it's just not the way I wanted to be in a gang, particularly when you're younger. You want to be in a gang. So then when I came back to doing this in 2010 or 12, just kind of being the front guy, I took a very kind of laid back approach and really trusted the people. And I got good people, but I really trusted them to kind of do their job. But what you realize pretty quickly is people can either come to a show and enjoy it and clap politely or, whatever, and be engaged, or they can be knocked out by it. Yeah. And the thing that knocks people out is if you engage with the band and with them and with the songs, if they feel like you're invested in those songs. And so it was, certainly an evolution, but I think there was sort of a moment where that clicked with me. That's me snapping my fingers, where, I would try out things on stage. And the first thing was really taking charge of the band. But the second thing was taking charge of the room, right? Whether it's, 3,000 people or 30, it's you have that, we were just in a very small room doing a small private show. And I don't know what was maybe 100 people or something.
110 or something.
Yeah. Very small crowd. And there was like, everybody was completely focused on what was happening.
Yeah.
And that's, I'm not saying there's an art to that, but there's a skill to that, right? There's like people will ask me like how, I have done this at like a rock and roll fantasy camp. Like, how do you be a lead singer? And it has almost, or a front guy, and it has almost nothing to do with your voice or knowing the words or
And
the
David
song.
Lee Roth.
It's like, it's like you have to go out there and own the moment. And because if you don't, and the band isn't like cute,
Well, people smell bullshit pretty quickly, right? Yeah.
Or they enjoy it, but they're not going to go away being like, wow, that was so much fun. I want to be that. When I go to a show, there are bands that I love who just kind of do it. And that's a certain kind of band. But, just sort of talking about, we're here for Tom Petty Weekend. And Tom had a real art to not being over the top. I was going to say not being Mick Jagger. Mick has a certain thing, but he's playing to giant stadiums, right? But Tom, particularly in theaters, but in arenas as well, he had a way of dialing it up to just the right amount. So if it's a Super Bowl, it's at 10. And if it's at the Garden, it's at 8. And if it's outdoors at, a outdoor arena, it's maybe 7. And if you're in a theater, it's maybe more like a 4 or 5. And I'm not saying what you're putting into it. I'm saying the amount you're sort of projecting toward people. Because, 10 or 11 at the Beacon Theater or the Fonda it's gonna look like too much. It's like, whoa, what's going on? It looks like over the top. It looks like cabaret.
Yeah, well,
right?
it almost becomes pastiche, right? Like if you
Right.
if you behaved out there just now,
The way I had
you did
last
out there,
night,
you'd look like an insane
look
person,
like
right?
an insane person, yes, which would have been fine. They would have loved it, but it's like, oh, just totally crazy. But yeah, I mean, so I think there's a certain amount in sort of finding that sweet spot. I was finding it in the first song. You're kind of checking the crowd and you're checking your energy level and you're checking, whatever. I shouldn't have done a song I don't know for the first song, but which is why you do a song that cold.
Yeah.
Because that first song, 2, 3, you're kind of gauging all that.
Yeah.
Right. But this is a very, I don't know that the people who listen here are going to want to hear.
People who listen to this podcast are nerds. They
Okay.
love
Well,
this stuff. They love it.
Yeah. I mean, I don't want to sound like, oh, this is such a hard job to do. It's not, but there are tricks.
Yeah.
To doing it that are not maybe obvious
Yeah.
to everybody.
Well, especially unless you've been in a band or you've been around bands lots and you're watching visual cues when you're sort of cueing each other. And those things that, again, that's the stuff I love watching on stage, right?
No, I get it.
So what bands this weekend or artists have you seen that you hadn't seen before you thought, oh, they're pretty good?
I'm going to get the names wrong. The problem was I would just sort of stop when I heard something cool. And I don't have the list in my pocket. I do not, which is rude. There was a band on the first night with a female front singer. Nolia?
Nolia Joy.
Nolia Joy.
Yeah.
Really good band. Very talented. Young. Really young. But I just, was really knocked out by them. Shine.
Oh, dude.
Is always, like, I think Shine's a star.
Yeah.
I was trying to get her to come to New York in the dressing room last night. I'm like, girl, what are you doing? Like, but I get her reluctance. It's hard. It's like, if somebody said to me, I'm in New York City and I have my sort of circuit that I do, and then we go out for particular things. But if somebody said to me, like, come to, I don't know, St. Louis, Missouri, and start again, I'd be like, well, that sounds insane. Yeah. So I get the trepidation, plus New York has the New York thing. But I just think she's like a huge, huge talent. Just sitting in the dressing room while she plays like gospel piano. I could do that all day, So she's a real standout. Look, I think the the thing for me here is hearing the cool mixture of originals and various versions of Tom Petty songs. But I have a soft spot for anybody who's sort of under 30, but really under 20.
Yeah.
There've been a lot of women here this weekend. And I think that just is the future. And I think, if you watch the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame thing last night, which I didn't because we were watching me, but or a viewer. But I saw, some of the wrap-ups and so forth. And what drove people to watch that were the Sabrina Carpenters of the world.
Yeah,
You
of course.
know? It's like and where's Meg from the White Stripes? It's like, that's the future. It's not going to be Dave Grohl. And
Of course not, yeah.
He
No, of
wants
course.
to run that Rock and Roll Hall of Fame so badly. And he will in a certain way, but that's not where the future for the kind of music we love. That's not where the culture is evolving to. There's going to be,
Absolutely.
they just have more to say. White male artists, it's like anything in politics or whatever. It's like, we've heard that. And there are some standout people who do it. I'm not saying there aren't, but I think the future will be driven by the choices artists like that make.
And I agree. And I was talking to Dan Space about that. The producer said the good thing is, he was talking about, he was speaking to a pastor who said churches can either be a monument to the past or they can be forward thinking, moving forward. And that's one of the things this festival does, right? Is it does bring that perfect balance of both of those things.
More cowbell.
Look.
Sorry, just found a cowbell.
Yeah, so I was kind of wrap up a little bit because we'll talk about what you've got coming up, but I just wanted to sort of one last comment on the love between you and Jake. The bromance on stage with you is just fantastic, and you've got this sort of, I was ragging on you about you're twice as old or more than Jake or whatever it was when we last spoke.
Oh yeah,
or more.
Yeah.
And then, but I seen you both on stage, and you sort of take those two, the sort of the master and the ingenue kind of thing. It's there. But you don't treat him, there's no sort of condescension there. There's no real difference between the two of you. You treat him just like you would any other artist, which is super cool. And what a sort of experience for him too, right? To do all that learning firsthand from all these experienced guys. So I just wanted to get your, what's the joy of working with Jake for you?
Well, I think what makes that particularly easy is we don't at all do the same thing.
Yeah.
And I think too, and he and I have talked about this recently, like in relation to what we were talking about earlier, sort of finding my feet as a frontman. I came out of originally punk rock, which was very audience engaged, audience centric. We were a 3-piece, and you really want to get sort of everything you can out of that experience. And part of that was being in the face of the audience and them being in, it was just that. It was collaborative with the audience. So all those lessons from way back came back to me in the arc of kind of relearning or learning the frontman job. I wasn't a frontman then, but I was in a 3-piece. It was just like bash it out, kind of punky R&B, like the Jam or that kind of clashy kind of thing. He's much more singer-songwriter in a very kind of, Laurel Canyon traditional early 70s way. And he's now figuring out the way to explode that, right? So I took Tom, kind of exploded that. He's taking maybe Jackson Browne and sort of, how do I pick this all apart and put it back together in my own, with my face on it, right? And I think, so I think he's taking, I can't speak for him, but I think he's taking what he's seen me do, seen Willie Nile do, seen, any of these, Springsteen, any of the artists that he's sort of worked with or around or whatever, Butch Walker, who produced some tracks for him, and just like, how do I apply this to what I do? And I think that's the great thing about it is he has the confidence level because he's been doing it long enough to be like, okay, well, that's not me.
Yeah.
But what of that guy's persona on stage does work. And it can be as simple as, like we had tech problems on stage or whatever, and we just powered through.
Yeah.
And I took the solo and then he took a solo. And it was like, we just sort of made it work. And then everything, it's like rather than stop the show, And I think little things like that are like, they're instructive in the moment, but they stick with you. They're like, okay, well, maybe when you have 3,000 people staring at you, the thing is to not throw a tantrum and stop.
Axl Rose. Anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's awesome, man. So you've got a little bit of a mini tour coming up now with the Wallflowers down in this Sounds Like a Forest. So tell people about that and tell people again about Put the Album, man, because I was talking to you about the vinyl master of The Last Day of Summer it's the sweet spot. It's the best way to listen to that album, and people should pick it up. Where can they get it? Tell people what's coming up.
I appreciate that because as I was telling you, we did spend quite a bit of time getting that right. And I was like, people aren't going to notice. And it's amazing to me how many people have come up to me who are into it. They like have not like $10,000 turntables, but like, nice home systems. And that's what they do. They have a glass of wine and they put on the turn, and they listen to a record 20 minutes. It's like, I get that. I love that too. So The Last Day of Summer came out in 24. And it's done incredibly well and been incredibly well received. The reviews were really nice. But I think the best part about it is that people have responded to it who have bought it kind of blind at live shows. They've heard a couple other songs. They're like, oh, what's that Heartbreak one? I want that one. So okay, well, this is the one. And they buy it and, whatever. But also seeing people's response to those tracks live. So we normally do, like, I'm trying to think on the Wallflowers shows, we only probably do like 6 or 8 songs, but, we'll probably do 4 from The Last Day of Summer.
Right.
And like 1 or 2 from each of my other releases. So, and to see people treat them like songs they know when they've never heard them before, that's an incredibly gratifying thing. I mean, I'm not writing anthems, these aren't like Don't Look Back in Anger. These are a much different kind of song.
I don't know, man. Heartbreak's got a pretty good.
Yeah, but I think
easy single on chorus.
But it is
it's
more.
great.
It is more. It's more Heartbreakers than Oasis.
Oh,
it's
100%,
that, right? So it's not necessarily gonna hit everybody the same way, but I do think there's people who like that kind of old school, late 60s, early 70s. Yeah. Big rock band, kind of thing, not Black Sabbath, but more, I think it's for them. And I think the next couple records, we're working on finishing, like you said, I'm going to go out this week with the Wallflowers down in Florida and the Southeast, Winston-Salem and so forth. And then after that, go back and we'll do our Thanksgiving show in New York, which will be a Last Waltz-esque show. And then we do our holiday show, which is Merry Keithmas, because it's Keith Richards' birthday, which is my favorite show of the year. But beyond that, we've been, so back in the 90s, I did, we released 3 songs, but I recorded some songs that Pete Townsend was the producer on. He and his partner, he'd done the Tommy Broadway show. He was flush with cash, needed to spend it. I asked him to spend it on me. No. And we've gotten to be friends. And we finished 3 songs, mixed 3 songs. Eventually they came out, because of the internet and whatever. But I only discovered a couple of years ago, the engineer on them, the studio had closed, and he contacted me. He said, I've got all these tapes with your names on it. It's like Slate Townsend. What should I do with these? And like, fucking bake them and find out what's on them. You know?
Yeah.
So he did, and what we discovered was, along with the 3 tracks that were done, there were 7 other songs that were not completed.
Okay.
Some didn't have keyboards, some didn't have all the guitars done, some needed some bass fixes, like little odds and ends, vocals here and there, backing vocals in particular. So we're almost finishing those. And those are and Pete gave me the rights, so we can put it out. We're going to try and get him to help promote it for sure. But so hopefully, we're aiming to get it done so that we can do maybe a single for Record Store Day in the spring.
Oh, cool.
And then the album would be Record Store Day in the fall.
Yeah.
Just because it's a hook, and it's also Christmas, Black Friday, and all that other stuff. So that's the big project, and then Earl Slick and I are scheduled to go to the UK the first 2 weeks of March. And the loose plan, is to go out to Black Barn, Paul Weller's studio,
Okay.
and just sort of see what happens.
Yeah.
The beautiful thing about the Townsend tapes, as we kind of refer to them internally, is that it gives me a record for 2025 that's already in the can.
Yeah.
And so I can kind of take my time, because the label wants another record. This was like fairly successful. They're like, okay, another one. And like, you don't just have 12 songs, like in your back pocket. And I don't want to just do that. I mean, I've done that before. And there are records in my solo catalog where I've been like, So that's the plan. We're going to go in, hopefully with Paul, but certainly with the guys from his band and Slick and some other friends of mine in England, like Kathy Valentine from the Go-Go's lives over there, and Glenn Matlock from the Pistols, Jonesy, these guys that I've known a long time, and try and get them, corral them. But if it ends up just being me and Slick, Weller's drummer, maybe Mick Talbot from the Style Council, like the kind of, these are
just little names.
But those are the guys who played on the last record. It's like they have a sound that I've always tried to get at. And I talked to Paul, he was going to play on the last record, and I sent him a track, and he said to me, it was too finished. There was nothing really for me to add to it. So the idea is to entice him with it being, like guys in the studio playing, pick up a guitar, sit down at the keyboards, whatever it is, and see where that takes us, because what he and I have talked about is we both obviously love soul music. That record, though, I don't know that Americans would hear it, but like Mojo said, it was like a folk soul, like Greenwich Village folk soul.
Yeah,
right?
that scans, yeah.
And because it's not a soul record, and it's not a folk record, but it's not a rock and roll record per se.
Yeah, it's got flavors. It's got
Right?
different flavors in there. Yeah.
And that comes when you mix, Mick Talbot with Slick, I just think that's what happens. So that's the plan in March, and we'll see what we get. I've got a couple of songs. And then the other thing is I've been talking to Daniel Lanois, who produced, U2 with Brian Eno and Bob Dylan's Time Out of Mind and Emmylou Harris and Willie Nelson. He's like a legend in my mind. We've talked about getting together and just playing through some of my demos.
Cool, man.
To see if there's anything there that speaks to him, which is essentially what happened with Dave Stewart on the last record. We were talking, he was coming to the city. It was the tail end of the pandemic. And I said, he's like, oh, what do you got? What are you up to? Oh, we're finishing this record and I've got this tune. I'm thinking of dropping it because it's not happening. It's not the way I heard it. And he goes, send it to me. I'll fix it up. And the thing about Dave Stewart is, whether you're into what he did with Tom or the Eurythmics or whatever, he's a guy who knows how to make a hit record. So like he took a song that was, I don't think your average listener might hear the difference, but like as the creator, the things he added and the mix that he did and the sort of direction that he took it artistically was just a completely different thing. So that's what you get on the vinyl, which is, I think, worth it just for that. But that's what I'm sort of looking for with Daniel Lanois. It's just like, what does, I was a control freak for too long, and I didn't have any hit records doing that. And it certainly has been a good experience working with, co-producers on the last record, worked with Dave Stewart, this guy, Eric Lichter up in Connecticut, who owned the studio that we cut most of the basic tracks in. And Mark Platty helped out, who worked with Bowie. He did a lot of the vocal sessions with me. And Slick, just the guys, Ron Blair added some stuff. He obviously has a pretty good ear for making a record. And, just everybody who's involved, they sort of know what they're doing. So I really trusted the group of people to do, it's the Bowie school. It's like you get the best people who sort of have a shared ideal with you.
Yeah.
And maybe not a shared vision, but the same reference points and so forth. And then you let them do what they do. I'm not saying you don't put your thumb on the scale sometimes, but if you're getting Earl Slick, you're not like telling him how to do the solo.
But you get him because you want Earl Slick and you want what Earl Slick brings, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. 100%.
Deadly, man. Well, look, I love the last album. I'm a fan. I'm looking forward to what's coming up. So thanks so much for spending a little bit of time here in the backstage, in the belly of the beast here. And we'll see you next. Well, I'll be down here next year. I'm hoping you'll be down here next year, and I'm hoping I get over to New York sometime so I can come and see one of the shows out there.
Have Gun Will Travel was a band that I would, again, very strongly recommend checking out. I'm pretty sure you'd like them.
Mm-hmm.
Really, really tight rock and roll outfit. Like, again, you see a band where the songs can be good, but they're not quite, you don't feel like they're quite meshing, or maybe they're having an off day or anything or something like that. But these guys were on it. Like, from the first note to the last, they were super professional. All their licks landed, all the pushes landed. The transitions were great. They picked the right songs. They knew how to manage the energy of the crowd. Really good set. And I talked to Matt, the front man, afterwards. He's coming on. So I've got I'm probably going to get like 7-8 conversations off the back of this. But really, really enjoyable. I missed Mike Bulwer and Danny Roberts, and then most of Harbour Wynn because I was off. I had to go eat. So there's that pizza place, like the pizza, fantastic pizza. I had a great. And I don't know okay, so if I'm ordering pizza, I just get a margarita, man, because a really good margarita is a thing of beauty. You don't need to have all sorts of meat and all kinds of crap all over your pizza. Cheese, basil, tomato sauce, really good dough. Perfect. So I missed a couple of that. But.
Friend of mine always used to get the chicken parm sandwich when he went to an Italian restaurant because he was like, that's always going to be the bellwether of whether or not this place can hold its water or not. If you can make a good chicken parm sandwich, then I'm on board. If your chicken parm sandwich sucks, I don't want to have anything else to do with your menu. So,
so finished my pizza and headed straight into See Shine. I've already talked about how just absolutely unbelievable that was. Morning Bell, another band who they were the sort of the last act on the main stage before the headliner. Another band I think you'd really dig. Got sort of that 90s alt vibe. They do it's not just kind of all straight on the rock and roll rails. They'll take little detours here and there. They'll throw in little spicy bits of different sort of styles and things. Not really Weezer, but I kind of say a little bit Weezer adjacent in some of their creative decision making that they do when they're on stage. And again, super, super tight. The set was like just there. Like you could tell it was like, these 7, 8 songs we know will blow people. These are our best songs, and I can't remember which Petty song they did though. I don't remember which one they did, but they were fantastic. And then the Wallflowers, and it's funny because, and I'm not dissing. This is not no shade at all to Wallflowers. I kind of knew what I was going to get from them because they're a huge, top tier rock and roll band. They've been doing it for years. You know they're going to be good. Like if they're not good, then that's going to stand out, right? So they're going to be good. Mm-hmm. But Jeff and Jake, I sort of preferred that as a rock and roll show. The one thing I would say with the Wallflowers is a lot of the stuff is quite similar. They've got like a lot of the songs are. It's quite similar. I mean, look, dude, Jake Dunl's a great singer. A different frontman though too. Not like. He's not super interactive. Like he did a couple of little bits and pieces, but it was mainly song. Like 10 seconds to intro the next one, song. And they did Change of Heart, which was great. You Got Lucky, Refugee, and The Waiting were the 4 Petty songs that they did. And he opened though with 3 Marlenas, which has always been my favorite Wallflower song. I'm not sure if you know that one off the debut.
I definitely know it by name, but I'm sure if I heard it, I would recognize it. I'm not enough of a Wallflowers connoisseur to know the song though. No,
it was a great set, and again, I mean, just a great band. Like really, with the drummer, man, that drummer's pocket, like oh god, I kill for that guy's time. It was so good, so tasty, And then Monday morning, I went to the Rally House, just down the road from the Ben Hill Griffin something like that, the football stadium. Which, by the way, Brad took me on a tour of the UF campus. That place is gigantic. That campus, it's insane.
I mean, when you talk about American universities, and especially these flagship schools from the state schools like the University of Florida, University of Tennessee, University of Michigan, like
Right.
University of Michigan has several university campuses across the state, and as does Florida, as does Tennessee. But then that's like the flagship one is always the one that's got the 50, 60, 70,000 students and the football stadiums that hold
Yeah.
100,000 people and whatnot. And I can't even remember what the name of the stadium is. It's just known as the Swamp.
Yeah.
So whatever name got attached to it, it's been overrun and overshadowed by it just being the Swamp.
The
So,
Swamp, yeah. So, but you've
Yep.
got a football stadium, a basketball arena that holds, I think, 15,000. You've got a full sort of Olympic-sized swimming venue, soccer stadium, like a smaller stadium, obviously, baseball, softball, tennis. There's a full-size golf course on the UF grounds. I'm like, what? This is insane. So it was super cool to see that because again, I mean, the whole, sororities and the what's the other one? What's the boys? What do the boys live in? Fraternities. Again, is one of those things that as an Englishman and as somebody who didn't go to university, it's like, well, okay, that's kind of played up for Hollywood, right? It's like, no, you can see all the Latin letters and you can see all the houses and the lawns. Like, wow, that's mad. It was so cool.
Yeah, no, the fraternity scene, at least, I mean, I'm several decades away from it now, but it was, you watch Animal House and it's like, oh yeah, those places existed on campus for sure. When I was going to college, I saw the couches out front with random bits of clothing scattered about and maybe a keg, a keg on its side in the morning on a Sunday morning or whatever. So yeah, it's the real thing.
So were you in a fraternity, Pete, or did you kind of stay clear of all that?
I was not in a fraternity. They wouldn't have me.
They're not good enough. They're not good enough for you, mate.
Yeah, that's what it was. That's right. That's it.
So you drove in too, and we were chit chatting a little bit about that too, because I think that would be a fun drive, and I think there's bits of it that you said they're a little bit sort of flat and boring and a bit straight, but driving down the south coast of the US, because there's a lot of really cool scenery down there. If you're getting from Gainesville back to New Orleans, I would imagine.
You'd think. There is some. You're right. I take that back. There is some, especially when you go across the Florida Panhandle. It is hours of tedium, but then you get into kind of southern Mississippi, Alabama, and you cross some of the waterways, some of the rivers. When you get into Mobile, you cross the Mobile Bay. You go into under a tunnel that goes underneath part of the city and pops back out again. And so, I mean, there's some beauty for sure once you kind of get a little bit further west. But that northern panhandle of Florida, like I was saying, lots of paper mills, lots of pulp farms, lots of tree farms and whatnot. And it's there's not a whole lot to see on that drive. So, but yeah, the Gulf Coast has got its charms for sure when you get into the right pockets of it. So.
Driving through Alabama, I can only ever hear that whenever anyone says Alabama, I just hear Forrest Gump say it. Greenbow, Alabama. So I was thinking about that. And this is weird. I've got a few English friends who are huge Tide fans, and they go down there. They go to one game once a year, every year.
Oh, no kidding.
They've ended up friendly with one of the players who's now in the NFL. He got drafted, and they're friends with his family, so they hang out with his family. And if he's down, they hang out with him. And there's this big thing. It's like, the hell? So of course they're the celebrities down there now, right? Because they're the English guys who always come down to see Tide play. So yeah.
Well, I'm not saying that your own charisma and talent didn't get you places to begin with, but you were the one British accent that I heard in all of Tom Petty weekend. So that in itself automatically elevates you to a different status, just like your friends who are screaming "Roll Tide" and the football games in Alabama.
Well, and they sing English football songs as well, which are like soccer songs, so that they do that, and so that's kind of a peculiar thing. But it is funny, like, I've always had that in Canada as well, right? Where, if you're doing a presentation or something, one of the things you get taught is we'll always have an icebreaker. The voice kind of does it for you. The accent does it for you. You don't really need one because people go, who's that guy? What's that? So there's that little momentary, the ice gets broken. Have you ever do you know a comedian named James Acaster? Have you ever run across him? English
Don't
comedian?
know. Don't think so. No.
Very good. His theory is that it's all fine and well having an icebreaker, but once you're done, you should freeze things back over again because you don't want anyone else coming in taking advantage of all the little ice cubes you made.
I'll give you some schmoozing tips, why not? A lot of people will tell you when you're schmoozing, have a good icebreaker, right? Break the ice. What they won't tell you, at the end of the conversation, unbreak the ice. You don't want anyone else swooping in, taking advantage of all the lovely little ice cubes that you created. So freeze it over again before you leave. So as you're leaving, just slide something under the fence, like death comes to us all, something like that.
Stink up the room on your way out. Yeah, that's great.
Oh, man alive.
We covered a little bit of it, but what were the biggest differences then for you from last year to this year that you noticed?
Well, like I said, I think there was a few more people there. The weather was perfect. They had done some really nice upgrades to the venue, which was really noticeable and really impressive, and good to see that the place continues to I hope that it continues to do well. Music venues oftentimes struggle, and I hope that it keeps growing, because it certainly felt even more kind of put together, and they were still continuing to upgrade, and there was some construction going on where we couldn't get into a room or two as well. So, that was, the venue just was upgraded and felt better. The whole area kind of felt a little bit nicer too. I remember making a comment to you about having a hard time finding places to eat. And you couldn't kick a rock without hitting a window of a restaurant. This weekend, it felt like there was a lot of options and a lot of opportunities. So the whole area just felt a lot more vibrant. And like I said, too, I don't know if it was the festival itself, but or just my perception of it, but I just felt so much more comfortable going back a second year and just sort of settling into it, knowing what to expect, and just like a nice, soft, comfortable couch that you could just slide into and just be comfortable the whole weekend. It just felt that way for me. And I'm really, I didn't necessarily expect this to be an annual event for me. I went last year, and partly to see the wildflowers front to back, and partly to get to finally hang with you for a little bit. And then I didn't get either of those things last year, so I was like, well, I got to do this again. And lucky enough that it just sort of slipped into my calendar and found a pocket that made it work really well. But now it's kind of one of those like, well, maybe this is just what I do in November every year now, because I can. Like we said, there wasn't a negative vibe for the whole weekend, and if I can carve a weekend out a year like that where I can just go and enjoy and be at peace, why wouldn't I do that every year? So that for me was special. Was just the absolute 100% positive feelings that it brought out. I just thought it was So for me, that was it. And also just the comfort of seeing people again, like old friends. Like I saw Dan Spies a couple times, and we didn't have this like, oh, you're Pete, I remember you from last year, whatever. It was just kind of like, oh, Pete. Jeff Slate came up to me. I'd never even met Jeff Slate before, and I said my name when I was introducing myself to him and Jake. Remember, I met you last year, and Jeff was like, oh yeah, Pete, Pete Nestor. Oh, of course, Pete Nestor. We used to hang out at the at the Mercury Lounge. Why would he know my name? But it was just kind of like, oh yeah, I know who you are. Good to see you. I'm glad you're here. And it's just that feeling of warmth and just the camaraderie that everybody exuded was just that was pretty awesome.
Okay, so if I were to ask you to assign a number of warm, tasty burritos to the occasion, how many warm, tasty burritos was the Tom Petty Weekend 2025, and what would you fill those burritos with?
I smell a crossover episode here. Well, I couldn't give it. I'll give it 4.75 warm, tasty burritos, because if I give it a 5 warm and tasty burritos, then there's nothing to look forward to next year. I feel like I'm hoping that it can even somehow top it and be better next time. So I'm going to give it 4.75 warm, tasty burritos. What would I put in those warm, tasty burritos? I suspect that those warm and tasty burritos would be filled with maybe non-prescription pain medication. I don't want anybody to tear a meniscus while they're out there dancing to the Night Watchman. And I also don't want them to have a problem with addiction at that age or at any age, really. So that's what I would do. Non-prescriptive pain medication, 4.75 warm, tasty burritos on the spot.
So for people who have no idea what the hell I'm doing asking you that weird question, please tell people about your podcast, your fantastic podcast.
You're a peach, Kevin. So I got a podcast with a buddy of mine, Brian Ruskin, who is in an Underworld concert tonight out in Colorado. God bless him.
Cool.
Yeah, so he's excited. He's having the time of his life right now. But yeah, we've been doing this podcast for about 4 years, about as long as you've been doing the Tom Petty Project. And we're at about episode 50. We review an album, and at the end of the album, we give it a 1 to 5 warm, tasty burrito scale as to it's how it rates. And then we fill those burritos with something that is album appropriate. So yeah, we got episode 49 coming out maybe in the next couple of days, Fiona Apple. And I will say, I've got 2 words for you, Kevin. Fiona Apple. And what does Fiona Apple have to do with the Tom Petty Project?
Good question. I use an Apple phone, and I went to school with a girl named Fiona. Other than that, I'm not too sure, Pete. Why don't you tell me?
So another gimmick of the pod is we always open with 2 words for you, and then we circle those words in, and it's usually some sort of random form of trivia within the episode. But this one, Fiona Apple actually has a producer and multi-instrumentationalist named John Brian.
Oh, okay.
Who actually plays just about every instrument on the album When the Pawn, which is the album that we're reviewing right now, and does all of the orchestral arrangements, et cetera, et cetera. And he is the individual that did the orchestral arrangements for The Last DJ.
Yeah.
So all of the strings that you hear on The Last DJ are arranged by John Brian from Fiona Apple fame. So there you go. There's the connection right there. 6 degrees of separation done in 2 degrees.
Well, dude, hey, thanks so much for jumping on. I love talking to you. It's been a blast. I'm looking forward to next year already. I mean, like you, I mean, this is just going to be, I can't imagine not going. I mean, to not go now and to see everyone else having fun and seeing the photos and seeing who's playing, it would be torture. So I think that will also, for me, be a sort of an annual pilgrimage. Whether or not I'm on the program, I already said to Dan, like, if next year, if you want me to do something, we've been throwing a couple of ideas around that maybe there'll be something for me to do. And if not, I'll just go and hang out. And, I'll tell you something, though. I'll leave you with this. And I've been sort of had in the back of my mind, I think it'd be super cool to do a documentary of the Tom Petty weekend. So I'm going to start putting together some costs, look at what it would cost, and then look at whether I could get, like Gainesville Chamber of Commerce or Alachua County. So just go and talk to people, like if we can get some money or crowdfund it or do something, because I think it could be doable and just come away with like a 45, 60-minute documentary about the weekend. I think would be super, super, super cool.
That is a fascinating idea and an absolute time suck of an idea as well. But if you have, if there's anybody that has the ability to somehow turn to a 24-hour day into 36 hours, it's you. So I have a feeling that you'll be able to make it happen if you. But that's a great idea. That would be really special. And you're right. Get the Chamber of Commerce involved, get a little funding. Maybe it's not going to happen right away, but I can imagine that people, we saw, for example, Sean Murphy and his Tom Petty trail, how easily it was. Well, he would probably beg to differ. He's worked really hard. He's really worked really hard at it, but everybody just comes crawling out of the woodwork because they want to talk about this and they want to be a part of it and they want to tell their story and they want to talk about Tom and bring that positive energy to the table. And so that's a really fascinating and interesting concept idea that I bet you could make that fly. That's cool, Tom. Tom is here in the room. That's cool, Kevin. I think that's a great idea. I hope. I wish you well with that, and good luck. Good luck managing your time.
Tom Petty Project is a proud member of the Boneless Podcasting Network, which is a loose collective of podcasting friends and acquaintances brought together and championed by the inimitable Chaz Charles. Go check out the roster by clicking on the link in the episode notes. You can also check out my other podcasts, Seaside Pod Review, a Queen podcast that I co-host with my best good pal Randy Woods, who performs all the music you hear in the podcast, as well as the Ultimate Catalog Clash that I co-host with my great pal Corey Morissette. We are covering the Black Crows during season 7 of that show. Don't forget to follow me on Facebook, Instagram, Threads, and YouTube at The Tom Petty Project, and on Blue Sky at Tom Petty Project. Go follow, like, subscribe, and do all those things, and please leave a review or a rating if you haven't done that already. Keep talking to me on social media, and I will read out your comments on the show as I like to do. And as a weekly reminder, the Tom Petty Project is not affiliated with the Tom Petty Estate in any way. So when you're looking for Tom's music, please visit official streaming platforms or even go to your local independent record seller to grab some actual physical media and support local business. If you're looking for official merchandise, go to store.tompetty.com. If you're looking for merch for this show, please go to store.tompettyproject.com. And don't forget to check out the Tom Petty Nation and Tom Petty Fans Forever groups on Facebook. Make sure you also check out Tom Petty Radio on Channel 31 on Sirius XM. Until we meet again next week, keep listening to and sharing Tom's music. Try to be kind. Try to say I love you to someone at least once a day. Stay safe and healthy, and I'll be back with you next week to get back to talking about the songs from The Last DJ, and I'll be diving into Like a Diamond. Bye-bye.